Hey guys, Jonathan Edwards here, and I want to talk to you today about why athletes don't have anxiety. And this is one of my more controversial posts because, you know, it seems insensitive nowadays. It seems like, oh, we're very focused on mental health and we're very focused on these issues that a lot of people are facing. But one of the things that I have a little bit of a challenge with is when we introduce a concept and then it is taken, it's misconstrued or it's misunderstood by people who don't necessarily need to accept it. Okay, so in the world of anxiety, there's the term anxiety can also be associated with things like nerves and nervousness and anxiousness and shaking and tremors and all this stuff. And these are things that an athlete can very easily start to escalate. And so what I mean by that is that when, if I came to you and you're just sitting there and I looked at you and I said, you feeling all right? And depending on your kind of your state, your analytical mind, you might go, "Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm good." And I was, "Oh, all right, okay." Now, if I came to you a little later, and I said, "You sure you're okay?" Now you might go, "Wait a second. Why is this guy talking to me? What? Like, I feel all right. Am I all right?" Now, a little bit more time goes by, I come by and I go, "Are you sure you're okay?" Because and then I go on this rant about, maybe how you look or how you're acting or how, and I could be making up stuff. And then what can happen is that seeps into your brain and you start to go like, well, maybe I'm not all right. Maybe I have been feeling a little flush lately. It's a little warm in here. Whatever. You can be susceptible to these kind of the things that I'm throwing at you. And one of the things that's happening now is, and there's people who are going to watch this and are going to get upset with me, and that's fine. But I want you to understand that anxiety and excitement are biologically the same thing. All right? Basically, your brain starts to pump you full of adrenaline and cortisol and all these hormones and all these things that make you feel, they make you feel weird, and they make you feel, they give you the butterflies, and they give you, they make you, your hands might feel a little cold, you might feel a little tingly, because what happens is that your brain, your body's like starting to suck some of the blood out of there, and sending the blood elsewhere in your body. Why? Because what you're thinking about is starting to trigger the fight or flight syndrome, right? And the fight or flight syndrome is basically your body getting ready to be attacked by the saber-toothed tiger, right? So, ages ago, like when we were cavemen, when our caveman ancestors had a threat, then like whether it was a saber-toothed tiger, or it was a fire, or it was lightning, or whatever, now all of a sudden the brain signals the body, hey, there's this thing coming, and we got to get the heck out of here. And so what did they do? Well, they got up and they ran over the fields and through the woods and through the river and wherever they needed to do to get away, to get to safety. And so that biological response to that intruder basically made their eyes wide. It made their pupils dilate so they could see. Their vision got clear. It made their ears like super sensitive so they could hear things that they wouldn't necessarily hear. They'd be now like attuned to things that they weren't necessarily attuned to before. Their sense of smell would increase, but most importantly, their brain would pump the body full of adrenaline, and the adrenaline would fire up the nervous system so that muscles contract and react faster than they had before, and blood would go away from the digestive tract. Like you say, like, hey, we don't need to be digesting food right now, so let's get that blood out to the muscles so that we can contract and we can run and we can sprint and we can jump and we can do whatever we need to do to get away from this thing, or we have to turn, we have to fight it, we have to beat it up. And so that is basically the same response that someone has when they're feeling anxious. And so what I've noticed that's happened, because the conversation about mental health that we're having a lot of now, which again I think is misunderstood in some ways when people feel anxiety, is that for athletes they're going like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I have a mental health issue. And what I'm telling you is that I don't think you have a mental health issue. Now again, I'm not a doctor, you gotta go check this out on your own, but what I'm gonna tell you is that anxiety and excitement are basically the same thing. And what's important is how you view it, right? And this has been studied and tested and proven. And I want to share with you, kind of what you need to look for. And I want you to kind of reframe this in a way to help you. So, as athletes, it's easy to, when you're in the middle of math class, or you're at work, or you're at home, you're away from the field of play, right? You're away from the place that you're actually going to do the thing that you do. Whether it's the field, the slope, the rink, you name it. And so what happens is your brain starts to show you pictures of what you're going to be doing. Right, so maybe it's a race coming up, or maybe it's you're going to have you're going to have physical testing for your team, and you need to kind of thrive, or you've got a combine coming up, something like that, right? And so what happens is while you're sitting, watching TV or having dinner, is your brain starts to think like you're there. But you're not there. You're having dinner. You're doing whatever. And so your brain starts playing these images and starts sending that signal, that fight or flight response to your body, but you don't need it right now. And so what happens? Well, you feel like weird. You feel, we used to call it just butterflies, right? We used to call it just like, oh, I feel nervous. I got butterflies like, way before my event. And that's true. Like your body is like sending this signal, but you have no place to express it, right? Because how many times have you been nervous, but then you've gone out to perform and that nervousness kind of goes away? The reason being is because your body is burning up that adrenaline that's in your system, right, to make you feel better. Like, so now it has a place to go. It has a place for you to express that. But when you don't have a place to express that, then it has a negative sense to it, a negative connotation, okay? But really what's happening is your body is preparing you to perform at a level that you haven't really performed at before. It's preparing you extra hard, because what happens is that as we get comfortable in our sport, as we get comfortable performing, as we get comfortable with what it is we're doing, it's easy. Our brain doesn't have to really kind of pump us full of adrenaline. It doesn't have to get us excited, because we're cool with what we're doing. But when we have an experience where, we need to kind of turn it up a notch, we need to be more reactive, we need to be more explosive, well, now's when we want that body to be pumping us, right? Pumping us full of all those good things to help us perform at our best, right? So anxiety versus excitement, this is really important. So I went out and I looked around, because I've been kind of teaching this for years, this premise that I'm about to teach you, but I also went out to find it because I know there's a lot of people watching this going like, well, you got any science around this? You got something to prove? Like this isn't just you talking? I'm like, well, yeah. So Dr. Alison Wood Brooks from Harvard University, from Harvard Business School, actually did some studies with in negotiation, like high pressure negotiation. And what she found was that when people made one small shift in their thinking, which is instead of thinking that they were anxious and they were nervous and these negative thoughts, that instead of that they looked at themselves and said, like, I'm just excited. That it made all the difference. Because what happens is a lot of sports psychologists will teach athletes like, oh, if you're breathing heavy, to watch your breath. And personally, whenever I tried to do any of those techniques to watch my breath or control my breathing, it just made me more nervous. It made my anxiety go up, right? Because here I was trying to control the way I was feeling. And this is like stopping a freight train. Because your body is just, again, your heart rate's increased, the adrenaline is pumping. Well, you can't slow that down very easily. Like there's been stories of like boxers who can kind of go between bouts and they can slow their heart rate. There's monks, in Tibet who can do this sort of things. But most of us aren't monks, right? We're not dealing. We're high pressure athletes trying to do stuff. And so what happens here is that you need to think a bit about, go, okay, wait a second. I'm going to either try to control me, but the other thing I control is how I'm looking at the situation I'm going into, right? So how you reframe what it is you're about to do is easier than trying to control what's going on in your body, right? And so what Alison Wood Brooks was able to kind of prove in her research, which is really, really cool, is that she was able to see that if we just framed it from feeling like all those negative thoughts going like, I'm excited, then the performance completely changed. And this is what has worked for me. It's what works for my athletes. It's going like, listen, what you're experiencing right now is not negative, right? Your anxiousness, your anxiety is not a negative thing for you. It's actually there to help you. You're just not expressing it right now. And so what you need to do by reframing what it is you are thinking of, this is called cognitive reappraisal. That's the technical term for this. Cognitive reappraisal. You're just basically taking the situation you're in and you're giving it a different framework. It's like you're taking the same picture, putting it in a different frame. And anybody who watches this, if you've ever been around art at all, if you've reframed a picture, maybe it could be a photo of your family. You put it in one frame, you think, it doesn't look very good. You put it in another frame, you go, wow, it looks pretty good, right? Well, this is what you can do as an athlete, is go, what you're feeling is not negative. It's actually your body there to help you perform better than you've ever performed before. And this is what I do with my coaching clients and my athletes that I work with, is that we spend time just working on this cognitive reappraisal and taking what has plagued a lot of my athletes in the past is like a negative experience and turning it into a positive experience. So I want you to think a bit about like what are some things that you have experienced that you've taken on as a negative? You think, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I can't, whatever, And if you spin it a different way and basically take it from the negative side to now the positive side and go, I look at it like this is like a dial. It's going from red, where you're looking at this like negative, and then you get it more to the middle and you're like, oh, well, this could be helping me a little bit, right? It's not so bad. But then you go, well, wait a second. If I take it all the way to the green and go, listen, how is this going to help me? How is what my body doing right now going to help me? When you reframe it like that, then you have all the benefits of what your body is trying to give you, right? And now you can express it on the field of play, right? Whatever it is, whatever your sport is, you can express it on the field of play. And so I call that game day, right? Game day. It doesn't matter what you do for a sport, whether you're on a field, you're on a rink, you're on a slope, you're on a course, that's game day, okay? So when you take that feeling, the problem is a lot of times we get these feelings when we're nowhere near the rink or the course or the fields, right? And we're just going like, oh, why am I nervous? When I competed in the Olympics, I was nervous for about 12 days prior to my event. And the crazy thing was the day of my event, I had nothing. I was dead. Like my body had been pumping adrenaline for so many days. I had nothing, and I needed it, right? And we get that into some of our courses where we talk about like how do you kind of generate this when you need it. But isn't that a new way of thinking, right? You go from thinking like, oh, I have this, my body coursing with all these chemicals and biochemicals and all this stuff that it is looked at negatively, but you go, well, wait a second, how can I turn that into a positive? And what elite athletes do is they take that and they turn it into a positive, and they're looking for that feeling of the butterflies. They know it's going to help them. All right. So I hope that helps you today. Listen, if you got a question for me, email me, coachedwards@athletespecific.com, and leave me a comment below. Tell me a time when you have had anxiety and how you've maybe reframed it, or maybe how you got stuck in a loop and it didn't help you. If you're a parent or a coach and you've got an athlete who you're wondering like what's going on with them, leave a comment below and let us know. And by all means, join our private Facebook group, okay? Just started the private Facebook group, depending on when you're seeing this, but it's called Creating High Performance Athletes. And I want you to come on and join us over there, because every Wednesday at about 4:30 Eastern, I do a Facebook Live where I answer our member questions and we go through kind of the topics of the day and what's going on. But I hope you'll have a chance to watch this video and leave me a comment below. It's a little longer than I normally go, but this is something that really excites me. We have a course on this called Mental Rehearsal. We cover a lot of this cognitive reappraisal in that. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave a link below. And I'll also put the link to that Harvard study below as well, and you can check it out. So thanks for watching, and if you're on iTunes, thanks for listening. I'll see you next week. Cheers.